Today we've got another upholstery project. I recently picked up my dream chair.
I'm on my way to pick up a Eames style lounge chair. I'm excited to pick it up and we'll give it a closer look once I get it.
That's going to be a future project. But while I was talking with the seller, I noticed he had a big pile of free stuff by his curb because he was moving. And this caught my eye, firstly because it's huge, blue, green, and yellow, but also because I think it's got some potential. So I'm going to reupholster this today, probably change the design because I don't think I'm sold on this button tufting, but we'll see what happens. Let's get into it. I snapped on my upholstery tool belt because there's a lot of teardown to do. I've said it before, but removing staples is the worst part of upholstery, and setting them is the best part. There's going to be a lot of both in this project. The teardown is always the worst for me, so once I get through this, it should be all fun from here on out. The two most important tools I used were the staple lifter and staple remover. Given the names, I probably don't have to explain them much further. If a staple was sitting proud, I'd use the remover if there was enough to grab onto. But most of the time, I'd go down the line lifting a row of staples, then swap tools and come back and pry them out completely. This gave me some time to think about what I wanted to do with this project. After brainstorming with our videographer, we realized he has a good spot for it in his house. So he became my pretend client, telling me what he wanted. And I did my best to pretend to be the professional who could turn his vision into a reality. I say pretend because upholstery isn't really my bread and butter, but I've really enjoyed learning it recently. With relatively few tools, you can take on a lot of projects, and there's basically infinite things out there to reupholster. Just check your thrift stores, Facebook Marketplace, or heck, the side of the road. So many pieces can be upgraded this way. It's also a great way to save money because good furniture is expensive. This will be my most challenging upholstery job yet because Tyler, my valued customer, wanted a fluted or channeled look. So instead of dimples and pleats, it's parallel lines with channels that give the piece a little bit more of an interesting look compared to just a flat surface. The problem is, this ottoman has sinuous springs instead of a solid wood backer board. That means most fluting techniques are out of the window since they require stapling between each channel. I'll have to figure something else out. Once the frame was cleaned up, I took some measurements and tried a few methods to get that fluted look with the spring-supported frame. They either didn't work at all or were too difficult and cumbersome to get clean results, at least for me. Eventually, I landed on a compromise using 1/2 inch sew foam. I was trying to avoid this obvious option, but sometimes the simple choice is the best one. Sewing through this will create nice channels, just not as deep as I initially was hoping for. The fabric we're using is called Covington Bumpkin Oyster. And trust me, it looks and feels a lot better than it sounds. Here's my cutting diagram. This sheet of paper represents 2 yards of fabric, and I scaled everything down to figure out how to nest the pieces properly. The top plate will be cut to 34 by 59 inches. Here's how I got those measurements. For the width, I took the width of the frame, added twice the foam thickness, then added 4 inches of staple allowance. That gave me 34 inches. For the height, it's the same formula with the addition of 1 inch channel allowance. I need to add this extra length since each channel takes about 1/8 of an inch of extra fabric, and I plan on having 7 of them. That's a total of 59 inches. The boxing panels for the long sides will also have 7 channels, so the width will be the frame, plus that channel allowance, plus another 1 inch of seam allowance, 1/2 inch on each side, for a total of 50 inches. For the height, I added up the frame plus the staple allowance, giving me 9 inches. For the shorter boxing pieces, I used the same 9-inch height and a width of 25 inches. That's the frame plus seam allowance. These pieces won't have channels, so no extra allowance is needed. One thing to think about here is how you'll sew the boxing panels together. I plan to sew all but one corner on the machine and hand sew the last one. This worked out, but if I did it again, I'd add extra allowance to one of the short boxing panels to give myself more material to work with. My thinking was that hand sewing the final corner would give me more flexibility for a perfect fit. Each of these 6 panels gets backed with 1/2 inch sew foam. For the top plate, I had a scrap piece that was almost perfect, just about an inch short on each side, but since that's within the allowance, I'm using it anyways. I centered it and lightly sprayed it with cushionrite to keep it from shifting while I sew. For the boxing pieces, I cut the foam to the same size as the fabric and attached it the same way with the cushionrite. I'll also need about 30 feet of piping, but I'll make that later. Before sewing the channels, I marked guidelines. I wanted 7 channels with 8-inch spacing between them. The first and last channels should land right at the edges of the frame. I used my computer to help with spacing, but it's fairly simple math. I always make sure to use an odd number of channels so that I know that there's one right in the center. After marking the positioning lines on the top plate, I transferred the same spacing onto the boxing panels. I sewed the boxing channels first to mentally prepare for what was coming, because there's a lot of bulk with the foam that has to go through this machine. Using matching thread, I sewed as straight as I could along each line. I skipped the first and last channel since those would be formed when sewing the boxing corners together. Having the industrial table for the ultrafeed helped a lot. As I got closer to the middle seam, things got bulkier and bulkier. I rolled up the assembly and clamped it with pony clamps to help fit it through the machine. Since the ultrafeed is designed for portability, tricks like this help manage the limited throat space. Once I was sewing, the ultrafeed handled it beautifully. You can see the channels forming, and from the front, that matching thread is nearly invisible. I think this is actually going to work. I used 3-inch firm cushionrite foam cut to 24 by 48 inches, the exact same size as the frame. I used the corded foam saw with the base plate to get clean 90-degree cuts. Often you might cut the foam a little oversized and then have it compress once you tension the fabric around it, but since I already have 1/2-inch sew foam attached to my fabric, I skipped that. And I also skipped batting for the same reason. The sew foam is kind of doing that job for me. Now it's finally time to set some new staples. I reused this piece and covered the springs and lightly glued the foam in place. I marked the center line on the frame so I could align it with the center channel. Then it was just a matter of evenly tensioning the fabric so the channels stayed straight, making sure the first and last channel landed right on those edges. I left a couple inches unstapled at the corners to trim and dress them before finishing. To make the corners look nice, I had to reduce some bulk first. I cut the fabric here and here, then folded a hem. Then I folded that flap down even with the edge of the corner. I went back later and sewed that pleat closed using a ladder stitch, and I'll link the tutorial for that invisible seam in the description below. Next up was piping, but first I've got to make it. If you want to see how to cut and join long bias strips, I'll link that video in the description as well. I cut 1.5-inch strips and sewed them around 5 32" cord. I stopped at around 14 feet, knowing I only needed about 12, but you always want to have some extra. I marked 4 inches from the bottom of the frame all the way around to help with placement. I lined the stitch line of the piping with that mark so that the cord would hide the line. I only used a few staples here since there's going to be plenty more that go into this part later. Before attaching the boxing, I trimmed the foam 1/2 inch from the top edge to reduce bulk where it meets the piping. Then, with outside surfaces facing, I stapled the boxing to the frame, making sure all those channels lined up. At this point, I started getting nervous about that final corner and my lack of extra fabric. I got some help pulling everything tight, so I think I'll have just enough material to sew it closed. Next was installing the cardboard tack strip, which helps create crisp lines and maintain even tension. Since I was stapling through multiple layers, I needed to use some longer staples here, and I pretty much used them from here on out. I tacked it in place with a few angled staples, then filled in the gaps in between those with staples along the top edge of the tack strip. The Sailrite upholstery staple gun was essential for this, because not all staple guns are created equal. Other air-powered ones can drive staples too far and destroy tack strip and fabric, and a lot of manual or electric ones just aren't powerful enough to make it through all these layers and then into that hardwood at the end. Not to mention, those are slower and will tire your hand out so much more. If I used a manual stapler for this project, I'd look like Popeye by the end of it. Now, time for the pros to laugh at me, because the only way I could figure out how to sew this last corner was like I would a leather project. Maybe a ladder stitch or a double blind seam would be more correct, but I went with a cross stitch using my leather needles, because when in doubt, do what you know. Luckily, I was able to sew it, although there was pretty much zero extra fabric left. Like I mentioned earlier, next time I would add an inch of allowance or so to that shorter boxing panel to save myself some stress. The next step is a fun one. The last exposed part of the frame gets covered as I flip the boxing down. I stapled it all the way around, saving the corner for last. I had to trim quite a bit of foam and fabric to get clean corners, and I made sure not to staple the fabric too far into the frame since I needed space for the leg supports. Since my 1/2 inch staples are longer than this 1/4 inch MDF, I just used my staple gun to attach these. Then I trimmed everything flush and went back to the machine to make another run of piping. This piping install was easier. I just followed the edge and cut reliefs at the corners, then added some more tack strip. Again, longer staples helped, especially through the sew foam in the corners. I grabbed the short nose staple gun here since it's perfect for long stretches like this where I'm working quickly. The final step was adding underliner to the bottom. I cut a piece 49 by 25 inches, which is about 1 inch oversized, so I could fold a hem on each side. I didn't pre-mark or iron anything. I just folded it as I went, because after all, this is the underside. I cut slits through the fabric for the legs, screwed those on, and I could finally see the finished product. And here's how it looks in the room. We knew we wouldn't be able to match the couch fabric exactly, so Tyler chose a fabric that worked well with the accent pillows and the wall color. Plus, I think the cat approves. And the foam is firm enough to put a tray on it, so it kind of doubles as a coffee table as well. I hope Tyler's happy with it. I'd say it's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. If you're getting into upholstery, you can find all the materials and tools I used down below, including the staple guns, because honestly, I couldn't have done this project without it. Trust me, you don't want to try this with a manual stapler. I think you'll break your arm. Subscribe for more upholstery and DIY tutorials, and I'll see you in the next one.